Thank you very much, Dave. Well, I guess you all are gluttons for punishment, eh? As if we didn't have enough bad news. And by the way, if there's anybody here who just feels like they can't take another item of bad news, it's just too much for them this week, leave now, no hard feelings. It's fine. Totally understand. Feel the same way. And at the same time, I think it's extraordinarily important that we have an accurate picture of where we are so that, as worrisome as the situation may be, we can take actions that make sense and that actually have some effect given the context. In PowerDown, I talk about a kind of perfect storm of global problems that we are facing now and will be facing over the next couple of decades. Global oil production peak is certainly one, and it's the one I'll be talking about most tonight because I think that is a problem that underlies a lot of others. So I won't say that much more about that one right now. Population growth is something that is related to our oil addiction because we have used oil, among other things, to increase the carrying capacity of planet Earth and to increase our population. We've used oil for industrial agriculture to increase the human food supply. We also use oil for transportation to carry resources from where they're abundant to where they're scarce so that we can build cities in the middle of deserts where people shouldn't be living. We use oil to increase irrigation so that we can increase food production. I don't know if you've ever tried lifting pails of water and carrying them to crops on parched land. It takes a heck of a lot of human labor. Even if you have draft animals to do that, it's damned hard work. But we don't have to worry about that anymore. We have pumps that run on electricity, that run on coal and oil and natural gas. So we have increased the human population by over 500% in the last 150 years. We were at fewer than 1 billion in 1800 toward the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. We passed 6 billion in 1998 and 1999. I kind of remember 1999 hazily. It wasn't that long ago. We've added another 400 million people to the global population since then. And that's about equivalent to the population of North America. So we've added about a North America's worth of people to the global population in the last 4 to 5 years. Unfortunately, we haven't added a North America's worth of new resources or support infrastructure. So population growth, even though the rate of growth is beginning to taper off, the actual numbers are still very worrisome. Given the fact that food production per capita is declining, and it has been for the past several years, there are a number of reasons for that. Among them is the fact that the amount of arable land is starting to decline. The amount of arable land had been increasing year after year for many years. We were adding to that figure by clearing forests and by irrigating more land, but that strategy has reached a point of diminishing returns, and in fact we're paving over farmland with roads and parking lots, and we're losing farmland to salinization of soils, erosion, and so on. So that's one factor leading to this problem of declining per capita food production. Then, of course, climate change, pollution, habitat destruction, loss of biodiversity. Something like a third of all amphibians threatened with extinction now. The oceans, ocean fisheries, virtually all threatened. And finally, unsustainable levels of U.S. debt. What does that have to do with any of the rest of these? Well, given the fact that all of these other problems are occurring more or less simultaneously and rebounding on each other, the fact that we're likely to have profound economic challenges over the next few years is important in and of itself because we are likely not to have that much extra cash flowing around to devote to fixing these sorts of problems. So here's some bad news indeed. I'm going to talk more about the first element of that perfect storm, the global oil production peak, because by now many of us have heard about it, but it bears talking about nonetheless, because it's such a meta problem. We here in the U.S. Should, of all people in the world, understand the importance of oil, because oil made this the world's richest and most powerful nation. The U.S., for the first several decades of this century, was the foremost oil-producing nation in the world, and in fact, we were the world's foremost oil-exporting nation. We were the Saudi Arabia of 1890, 1910, 1940. We were also the world's foremost exporter of machine tools and manufactured goods. Back in 1950, something like 7 out of every 10 manufactured goods traded on the international market carried a Made in USA tag on it. We were the world's foremost creditor nation. We were loaning money to the rest of the world. And we were self-sufficient in nearly every important resource. Now, a lot has changed since 1950. In 2004, we find ourselves the world's foremost oil importing nation by far, the world's foremost debtor nation by far. We're importing manufactured goods, non-petroleum resources, and manufacturing jobs are fleeing to other countries. None of this is any secret. Now, is this all the result merely of poor management? Much of it certainly is. We've had lots of lousy management over the last several decades, no question. But I would argue that many of these consequences flow from simply the depletion of the resource that made us the wealthiest and most powerful nation in history. This, after all, is where the oil industry started, back in 1859. And a young fellow by the name of John D. Rockefeller, soon in the story, realized that there was a lot of money to be made from petroleum, created the world's first multinational corporation, Standard Oil, and he became the world's wealthiest man. And Rockefeller oil and Rockefeller oil money transformed the U.S. in all kinds of ways, from colleges and universities to the banking system, the Federal Reserve System. One of my previous books was about genetic engineering. And in my research for that book, I was amazed to find out that the entire field of molecular biology originated as a result of grants from the Rockefeller Foundation. The Rockefeller Foundation was interested in discovering the genetic basis of inheritance, or the molecular basis of inheritance, of genetics. And so they hired some physicists and eventually cracked the genetic code and learned how to do gene splicing, and the rest is history. What was in it for the Rockefeller Foundation? Well, the Rockefeller Foundation at that time was into the idea of eugenics. And so they were interested in this subject for the purpose of, in their words, social control. They were immensely successful, all sorts of, not Pulitzer Prizes, but who's the big prize? Nobel, of course. Nobel, the Nobel family. And where did they make their money? Dynamite and oil. Well, that's a long story. We could continue with that for quite a while.